Gemara, today's daf is daf mem dalad. We are up to the two dots, about 10 lines on the top of the page. So in the Mishnah, we learned that when do we have the case of pigul? Only regarding items, regarding avodas, that there's another avoid that it's matter something else. But if it is the very last avodah with this item, for example, while you're spraying the blood, you had in mind to spray the blood somewhere else, there's no din of pigul. What we said by kmitza, by mincha, the kmitza, the part that you take off and you put on the mizbeach, it's matter itself. So if you had in mind the kmitza that you're going to eat this kmitza at the wrong time, there's no din of pigul. So we're up to the Gemara here, about 10 lines on the top of the page. The Mishnah is, as I said, kol sheyesh le matirin. If it has another matter, bein la'adam, bein la'mizbech. So, for example, you sprinkle the blood, you shech the four avodas, 4 stages, and you had in mind that you are going to eat the carbon tomorrow, or you're going to, the wrong time or something. Only then do we say it's pigul. Now, where do we learn all the laws of pigul out from? We learn it from shlamim, a carbon shlamim. There it says, we had before yachal, and it says the third day. So the question is going to be, how do you know to compare all other kabbanas to shlamim? Perhaps it's only exclusive to shlamim that we have the din of pigul, not by other kabbanas. Start what we learned. Only maybe kabbanas which are similar to shlamim. What's unique about shlamim? This is a carbon you eat for 2 days and 1 night. There's only one other carbon that you can eat for 2 days and 1 night. That's the b'chayr, carbon b'chayr. So maybe only b'chayr and shlamim do we say the laws of pigul. You eat for 2 days and 1 night. Any other carbon similar. What about the majority of kabbanas, the carbon chatas, the carbon teda? It's only day and night. But 9, how do you know? It says a pasuk by shlamim. It says if you eat mipsar. Mipsar is a generic term, flesh from any carbon. Is, and we dashen kol sheshiyot necholin, any carbon that you eat the flesh, the laws of pigul apply there. Okay, but not all kabbanas do you eat the flesh. What about the carbon oila? What about an oila she'ein shira necholin? What about an oila that you don't eat? You don't eat the meat. Minayin, how do you know the laws of pigul apply there as well? Tamaleimer, the pasuk says psar zevach shlamim. Psar is extra, zevach is extra. Meaning zevach, including more kabbanas, even kabbanas that you don't eat. Okay, menayin l'rabas ha'oifas. How do you know to be marba a bird which is totally dissimilar to a shlamim, or hamenachas flower offering totally dissimilar? And further, achani marba, I'm even including loig shemen shel mitzayda. Now remember, the loig shemen, the oil of mitzayda, is that you first spray them with the oil. After you bring the carbon asham, you sprinkle the blood of the asham. Then the next stage is you take the oil and you spray 7 times in front of the base of Mikdash, and then you take the oil in a cup and you put some on his earlobe and his thumb and his toe. And then the leftover the cup you put on his forehead, and the leftover the oil, the kohen in the jug, the kohen eats. How do you know there is pigul there? Now, if you remember, in the Mishnah we had a machlekes, because the loig of shemen you can bring a day later, 2 days later. It's not really tied into the carbon. What's the matter of the loig of shemen? The blood you sprinkle from the dama osham. So Rameir, who says this opinion, says that this only applies if you brought it together. If you brought it the following day, while you sprinkled the blood of the osham, you had in mind that the oil, you're going to eat the balanced oil another time. There's no pigul there, that's for sure, according to everybody. Rameir only argues if you happen to bring it on the same day, then the blood of the osham is matter this oil, this pigul. So this beginning of the Mishnah obviously holds like Rameir, because it says also the loig of oil of mitzayda, Tama Leimer. It says in pasuk that where it talks about tumah, it says, "Tell Aaron and his children v'yenozu, they should separate from the kachim the which are tumah. I don't want you to yechalu. You shouldn't desecrate my name. Ashahem magdishim li, that they make holy to me. Their magdishim li doesn't tell us what kind of carbon, including a oif, including a mincha, including a loig. Now it's talking about tumah there, and we are going to learn from tumah that all kabbanas are included by tumah. So too, all kabbanas are included by pigul. How do you get to that? We'll see in a minute. But us, this is how you do it. First, we have Gzei Shava. There's a pasuk by Noise where it says, if you eat Noise, you have a sin, and it's Kodesh Hashem Chilu, you're mechal. And by Tumah it says, V'lo yechalu. So we make a Gzei Shava Chilu. So just like by Tumah, it's all kabbanas, so to by Noise, I don't care what kind of carbon it is, even a carbon mincha, everything's included Noise. And then by pigul it says avoy noitisa, you committed a sin, and by noise it says we'll make another geshava of another menoisa. So here we see clearly, even though before we had a rule that you learn something from a hekesh, a B from A from a hekesh, you cannot teach C regarding hekesh, but Gzeir Shava you can. It's B you learn from A. You learn Noisa from Tuma by a hekesh of Chil, and then you're going to learn Pigul from Noisa Gzeir Shava of an oven. So we're doing that. So Gzeir Shava you can do that. Now, says the Gemara, so Ibazay, all kabbanas included. So why taka did the Torah describe the laws of Pigul only by Shlamim? Why taka did the Torah only apply the rule of Pigul by Shlamim? What do you come to teach us there? Ma'ata, now, I'll tell you, Ma Shlamim, just like Shlamim, the laws of Pigul, Miyuchadim Sheyesh Lehen Matid, in the 4 stages that we say you have Pigul, is that with these stages, you're mata something else. I'm mata the fats on the Mizbeach, Achilles Mizbeach. I'm mata the fats I'm after the flesh to the person, Achilles Adam. So just like by Shlamim, the stage that you're having this machshava is going to be mata something else. All other cases of pigul, for example, by kmitza, by mincha, if you had in mind to eat the balance of the mincha the wrong time, but if it's for itself, if you know you think during the dam about dam, or thinking during the kmitza about the kmitza, it's not being matter anything else. It is its own matter. There's no longer pigul. And we give a few examples. I don't know why there's 2 dots. By oil, when you spray the blood, it's matter all the rest of the animal carbon on the mizbeach. That's a matter. That's pigul. And the high to the koinim. When you take the blood and you squeeze against the mizbeach, this is what we had in the Mishnah. It allows the meat. So these are all classical cases of pigul. When you squeeze out, stand a little bit this from the thing, you squeeze and it squirts on the mizbech, it's mat to the flesh. Podim hanisrafim museidim hanisrafim. These podim, the 3 podim that we learned, the paragim kippur and the pad helm dover shel tzibur and the paragim mashiach, or the seidim hanisrafim, the seir of helm dover by avodah zara, and the seir of Yom Kippur, where you sprinkle the blood inside the heichel against the pareiches by the kippur, and then the 4 corners of the mizbech, by all of them. That's called. But what happens? And then the fat goes on the outer mizbeach, and then the meat itself is burnt by the Beis Hadeshin. The damam is matir as a At least the blood is being matir that the fat goes on the outer mizbeach. I don't know again why there's 2 dots. It's like right in the middle of Braisa here. It's like segmenting it. But what am I taking out? Kaimitz. If during the committee you had in mind the kaimitz, or lavoina vaktaris, minchas kainim, and minchas kaimashich, and minchas nesachim v'hadam. Now in the Mishnah. Because all of these are matzah itself. But in the Mishnah, Minchas Nesachim, we had the same machlekes Ramei and Chachamim. The Chachamim say Minchas Nesachim comes with the carbon. But you can bring it 10 days later. So therefore, it's not part of the carbon. You have in mind the carbon, you can eat the mincha the wrong time. Who cares? Ramei said, but if you bring it the same day, we care. By including mincha and sachim here, we're saying it's not part of it. Means even if you bring it on the same day, those are following Chachamim, and that's going to be a problem. The beginning of this brayse, we learned that it goes according to Ramei by loik shel shemen, and here by mincha and sachim, the follow Chachamim. How does that work out? We'll soon see. Rab Shimon says, "Mashal michad nishbar al mizbeach chitzen." Rab Shimon says, "No, you know what we learn from Shlamim? That just like a Shlamim, everything, all of its activities are done on the outer mizbeach. When did the laws of Pigul apply? Only on the outer mizbeach. But these 5 kabbanas, even if you spray the blood in the inner mizbeach, having in mind the flesh, the fats or whatever it will go in the outer mizbeach, there's no pigul because that's not like a shlamim. That's what Rab Shimon says. The exception is the 3 party manisrafim and the 2 seidim manisrafim because they're done, part of the activity done in the inner mizbeach. Okay, that's exactly like our Mishnah. Let's analyze it. First, we would have thought only things which are similar to shlamim. Mine here, which carbon is similar to shlamim? Only b'chayr. The nechel b'chayr is eaten 2 days and 1 night. So b'mayasi, why would you think that b'chayr is like shlamim? Because the 2 days and 1 night, but it's so different. How are you going to learn it out? How are you trying to drive it? If it's a memetin, from Alashlam came to smicha, a shlam requires smicha, you got to press down the sachim, the libation, trufas chazei b'shayk, and waving it, and doesn't have none of these activities. So it's not even similar. Why would you learn it? Elamim ha'achel ye'achel. We have a klal ha'achel. You have another klal ye'achel, so it's a klal, and then in the middle it's a shlamim, a prat. You throw the shlamim between as if it's klal, prat, or klal, and therefore your marba only similar to the prat. So what's similar to shlamim? The only carbon that we can think of similar to shlamim is a b'chayr, because 2 days and a night. That's a klal prat klal. Hanisher kol is michad adininu, where he has before as well. Ha'achel ye achel are two klal next to each other, and the prat of shlama was written afterwards. Amarava, yes, because we already learned. Kida amri inchi, like people say. Kedamri b'marav at the end of the throat. Komokish at the major snake klolos. Hasmur zelazah. Wherever you find two klolos next to each other, and then you have a prat afterwards. Hatta prat beinayhem v'doyna mechal prat. Put the prat in between as if klal prat to klal. Then you said Marbe Loik Hashem. Here I have a problem. Who holds that Loik Hashem if you bring it together with a carbon is Pigel? How many? That's not Meir. The time learned in the Braisa Loik Hashem. So Chayovin all of them should Pigel Meir the Chay Pigel if you bring it together with a carbon. Amos say, look at the next part of the Braisa. Umoitzi, and what am I excluding? What's the case where there's no Pigel because it is its last step? Minchas Nasachi, because you don't have to bring it together with a carbon. You could bring it separately. No, and dam. Also the rabban. That's the rabban because going to mayor. If you bring it together with the carbon, there's pigel there. The carbon is matter. That mincha. The Tanya we learned. Nische behema chayav no shel pigel neshe dam hazevach matir. A normal behema. Sorry, the mayor holds the nesachim of a behema. There's pigel because the blood that you sprinkle from the carbon includes also enables you to bring the nesachim. They said to him, "What are you talking about? The other maybe zivchal chayim nesachim mikan adasariyam. Even though it says till 10 days, there's no limit of 10 days, even beyond." He said to them, even I didn't say that. I'm only talking about that which you brought together with the zevach, only that which you brought together with the carbon, not the one if you talk bring the following day, there's no link between the two. I'm just talking about if you brought it together, that's what happens. Rabbi said, you're right, it's neither. It's not a mezacham, it's a third opinion, Rebbe. And you know what? You thought when he said loik shel shemen, it's really the rabban. This whole mission, Brais is the rabban. What's your problem, loik shel shemen? You understood loik shel shemen is that when you bring the dam of the osham, it enables you to loik shemen. No. This is Rebbe. When you spray the loik shel shemen the 7 times, that is the matter for them taking the oil and putting on the finger and everything else, and that's a matter that the rest of the oil in the jug, the kohen eats it. If during those sprayings you had in mind that the kohen is going to eat the oil another time, that's pigel. It's the oil that's the matter here, nothing to do with the carbon, nothing to do with a mayor. Now, what's Rebbe talking about? The meila. A cold man, you don't bring the carbon up. If you use it for your own purpose, you're a moil. You're stealing from Hegdish. You have all the dinim of meila. So Rebbe says, when it comes to the loik shel shemen, that what's actually takes away the meila. When you spray the 7, not when you spray the carbon, the blood, you spray the 7 of the oil. And so Rabbi Yosef says, just like when it comes to meila, what's matted it? The spraying, so too when it comes to pigel, that's the activity. So therefore, if you had in mind, b'shas, you're spraying the 7 times, you had in mind the wrong time for eating the loik shemen, that's the mat, and therefore that's the pigel. That's what Rabbi Yosef is mechadish. Just like the matanos is what matzah is no longer meila, only after you spray the 7 times oil in the direction of the base of Mikdash. So also these matanos, if you had in mind the wrong time for eating the remaining oil, that's the pigul. The time you learned, loik shemesh from the loik shemesh you're moil. Add she uses it cold man, you didn't spray the blood. The loik shemesh you're moil because it's part of the carbon and you're not allowed to.
Is the loik shemesh itself a matir for the mitzvah?
That's what the Rebbe is. Yeah, for the mitzvah for sure. Because you have to put on his boy and everything else.
And then it's matir him to.
But we're talking now about if the leftover oil in that jug goes to the kohen.
Yes.
So that leftover oil, if does it become pigul or not if you doing one another activity? So Meir says if when you did the carbon asham, the blood of the asham, and you had in mind that the kohen will eat the leftover oil. From that jug, tomorrow, that's pigul. Only if you brought the oil the same day as you brought the carbon. The Chachamim say no, since you don't have to bring it the same day, there's no connection, no link between the two. Rebbe doesn't talk about pigul at all. Rebbe talks about when do we say you're no longer stealing if you're using that oil. So according to Chachamim, once you spray the blood of the carbon, there's no longer stealing by the Mehatayr at least. And according to Rebbe, no, only after you spray the 7 times of the oil does it matter this. So Rabbi Yosef is saying, well, we'll say draw an analogy to saying the pigul. When is the pigul, machshav of pigul ruin the oil? During the zikas. So Rebbe says here, the Chacham say, till you spray the blood, it's no longer mila. Comes along, Rebbe says, no, moilin but Vishavin, everyone agrees, everyone agrees, even the Rabbanon agreement, the Rabbanon, you're not allowed to eat until you do the spraying of the blood. The kohen shouldn't eat the leftover oil from the jug until you spray the oil. That's what the Rabbanon. Until you do the whole process. Amru kamed Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yisrael said, I'm amazed. Gavra Rabba ke Rabbi Yisrael leme kamilsa. If you say such a thing, it's a klapnish. What does Pigel have to do with Mila? Hadiloi habab ifne atzmai. The loy, let's say, like, when does Rebbe argue? When does the mayor argue the chachamim? Only when you bring the loy together with the carbon, is the carbon connected to or not? But everyone agrees if you bring the oil the next day, there's no Pigel. In other words, we don't look at Me'ila at all. There's no Pigel at all. Everyone agrees. And you come along and say, no, there's a new day here that holds that even if you bring it on its own, the oil itself is mefagel itself. No such thing. How do you like? Everyone agrees that mutter mefagel. Everyone agrees that if you bring the oil separately, that the matanis is what's mattered. Let's say it's not connected to carbon. There would be no machlekes. Everyone would agree. So when can the kohen eat the oil from the jug? He has to first do the 7 matanas. Everyone agrees. No machlekes. This machlekes is that if you bring it together with the carbon, when is it the meal go away? But if you bring another day, everyone agrees that the meal doesn't go away till what? Till you spray them. Till you spray, and yet everyone agrees. Let me fagle. There's no pickle there. How do I know that? The Tanya of the Brisa. Like Shema tzedek chayavim. That Meir says that you chayiv if you bring the loy shema and mipnei shadam matira ila behinas, because the blood of the carbon is matter the behinas. So therefore, if you had a mind, it's pickle. You can bring it 10 days. And interesting, Rashi top line says, so ad asariyam doesn't mean a limit of 10 days. It's just an expression. He said to them, I also didn't say I also didn't say only if you come with an asham. This is the basis that Rebbe changed, by in the morning saying Krishma if you put on tefillin. Now, the Frierdiker Rebbe said that you have to put on tefillin because it says if you put on tefillin, if you say Krishma without tefillin, as if you bring a korban without the nesachim. And the Rebbe said that you can bring 10 days later. So if you're going to say later, it's all right. Elo Rabbi lo oilo Rameiri. So I give you a different answer. This Bryce is Rameir. The Samim mekan nesachim. Take away the worst in the sachem. It's a mistake. It doesn't belong there. This follows Rameir that if you bring it together with the animal, with the carbon is you have machshava. That's mafakol. Abai says you don't make any changes. Lo olam leitismel. Who told you that minchas nesachim is talking about you brought it together with the carbon? When the first part of the Bryce we're talking about you brought it's all Rameir. The first part is talking about when you brought with the carbon. So therefore there's pigel. The second part where it says take away nesachim, there's no pigel. It's talking about when you brought it the following day. The Tana loy haba imashim, who I didn't nesachim about imas, that will be the same thing. And the harder the end, Tana nesachim about bifnei atzman, who I didn't loy about bifnei atzman. Okay, then it says in the Mishnah, in the Baraisa, chatas ha'oiv dama matter bisr lekayim. How do you know that a chatas ha'oiv, the kohen actually eats the bird? You know what I mean? Tani Levi says this is what in Pashas Kodesh after the whole story with Kodesh, it says this is what goes to all the matnas kuna. It says this is what goes to the kohen, and it says this should be for the kohenim, and it says in the pasuk kol kabanim. What do you mean kol kabanim? So first of all, we start talking this marbe that the what happens to the leftover oil in the loig? Who does it go to? To the kohen. That's cold. I would have thought only that which was on the mizbeach, the leftovers, go to the kohen. But the loich or shemen doesn't go there. Therefore, it says what? It says the kohen. The high lab moisture is on the fire. Kamashlan, but cold even loich shemen. Then it says the pasuk l'chol. This pasuk in Parshas Kodesh it says what goes to the kohen. It says zer yi l'chol mikodesh kedoshim from the fire. I would have thought only kol kabanim even loich shemen. Then it says l'chol min chasam l'chol chatasam. So what's l'chol min chasam coming to include that minchas oimer? That minchas oimer goes to the kohen, and when minchas hakanoi is by a site, it goes to the kohen. Why do you need a special limit for that? Because that I thought it says a pasuk, but when do the kohenim eat? Asher kupa behem. When the kohenim eat, they're mechaper. So what kind of kabbalah does the kohen eat? Part of the kapara process. Only kabbalas which are there for kapara. Minchas oimer, which is only there to be matter the new tour. Lahatir asin and matter chodesh. Minchas kanois, which is only for the woman to see. No, not at all. So I would have thought that minchas oimer, minchas kanois is not kapara. Maybe a kohen shouldn't eat it. Levada Robakasha to see whether she did an aved or not. Kamashlan. That's why the pasuk says l'chol min chasam any mincha, and then it says l'chol chatasam. L'rabba is to include chatas ha'if. Why you need a special limit for that? Because something I would have thought neveli. I would have thought you didn't do proper shchit. You did malika. Maybe that's not kosher. Then it says the pasuk ulechol ashamam. Now that we're going through the pasuk, we're going through each one. What's kol ashamam? L'rabbis asham nazir. Asham nazir. He became tamei. He has to bring an asham so he can start counting again to recalibrate. That has nothing to do with the kapara and asham mitzayda. And sitting about again asham mitzayda to enable him to come back to the call and say he caught him and so on. Because I would have thought lahachshir kosim, like coming to be machshir the nazir and the mitzvah don't do kapara kavash landa. No, Fedi gemara osher mitzvah behedik sibe. Said the fashion of passing by mitzvah who eats it, the kohen eats it. El rabbis oshem nazir ki oshem mitzvah. Not that you come and teach you mitzvah. The oshem nazir has the same state as oshem mitzvah. And then it's on the pasuk Asher Yoshivu that they will return to me. Zegezel again. If you remember what it's talking about there is if a guy, had a pekat whatever it is, and then he swore false, he said, I don't talk about never had it. Then he was moida. So then he has to pay back the principal. He pays back a chaimish and he brings a carbon asham. But what happens if no one to return it to, the principal to, because the guy died? And the mother asks, "What do you mean? Which guy doesn't have a karev? Which has someone has no krevim, no goyim? Who is that? Again, who should go to? It goes to the kohen. It says Ashi Yeshiva Li. It goes back to me. The kohen will represent me. Zegezel again, and then it says the pasuk that what? That's kohen kedoshim. It's holy. L'cha ulv'nech. It's yours. So there's me'ila until you go through this thing here, you give it to the kohenim. So l'chayeh, if you're the kaddish, it's yours. Even to mekadosh a woman, if it belongs mamish to the kohen, it's no longer kaddish. Give mekadosh a woman. Big machlekes in Tanaim. We had in Mar Kedushin in the nuns where if all other matanos kahuna that are kachim and you give it to a kohen, can he mekadosh a woman with it? It'll remain kachim, but you gave her something. What kind of bailas does a kohen have? But Rashi here Rashi says here, it's only regarding gezel hageh that we say that it's kodesh, that you can give it to a mekadosh. But all other kachim we can't. Over there, the halach actually, and that's the halach. But there's another.
All discussion about if she can give it to a kohen, all she has is tovas. No,
that's something else. We're talking about now if it's kachim, can he give it to? And there we had Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said that you can't because you're not mekudesh. Anyway, but the choy definitely becomes a gezel hageh in mekadosh women. Tanya, we learned. Okay, so we had in the Mishnah, Machlekes. Shimon says only shlomim, only if it's outer mizbech. If it's a carbon that belongs in the mizbech, the partim and the sedim, there's no din of pickle there at all, because it's not like shlomim. That's what he learns from shlomim. Now we have a third opinion. The third opinion is Rabbi Lazar b'nei Rabbi Yossi. He says no chilik in the mizbech, outer mizbech. What the chilik is, the activities you did, where did you do them? It has to be like shlamim in the outer court, but it could be in other words, it could be a carbon that belongs in the mizbech. For example, the part from Yom Kippur, or the seed of Yom Kippur, or a helm dov zipper. So if where you do your shchita, you have to do your shchita in the azora. So if you did the shchita outside, and you had in mind an activity that's spraying the dam the wrong day, there's no pickle there because it's not like shlamim. But if you had in mind that the leftover fats of this part of Yom Kippur, I'm going to put it out on his back. So both to do with outside like shlamim. Even though it's an inner carbon, there is pickle. But if I did it while I was spraying the dam in the inner mizbech, thinking I'm going to bring the fats up in the outer mizbech, because you're supposed to bring that fats in the outer mizbech. Another day, then there's no. In other words, it's like a pshot in between the two. Rabbi Yisrael, okay. Tanya, Rabbi Yisrael, literally, pickle. If you had in mind something activity outside, it's pickle. But if you like pickle, Kate out how? Because you were standing outside. But he was standing outside doing shchita by a carbon inside, and you had in mind that I'm going to spray the blood tomorrow, which is inside, like pickle. Why? It's an inner carbon. You're spraying inside. You're standing out. No, it doesn't work. Light pickle, light pickle. You were spraying the blood inside. I'm going to put the fats tomorrow on the outer bed. Again, it's not in the same place. So it's not like Shlomo where everything took place in the same place. Light pickle. Because you were standing doing activity inside, thing but outside. You were shechting. You said. Harein, or even the Kabbalah blood or the halach, you start walking back inside. He said, which activity am I going to do tomorrow? The shvicha of the Aktaris Emunah, which is taken out of Mizbeach. Why? It's all on the outside. How do you know this? It says in the pasuk when it comes to the Yom Kippur paragraph Mashiach, it says Kashi Yudim Mishor Zevachim, just like the Zevach Shlamim do the same thing. The par, the emud and the fats go on the mizbech. It says clearly by Parkei Mashiach what to do with the fats. In fact, there it says you said us covered, in the state clothes. Everything it says there what to do. What are you learning? What are you gleaning from Shlamim regarding Parkei Mashiach? Like you didn't know from the parsha itself written by Parkei Mashiach. Ma'ata now. Elamakish par koim Mashiach l'shoy Zevachim. Compare the two. Ma shoy Zevachim achi ma'asav umachshavosam mizvechitz, and everything had to be done on the outside. I don't care where the animal itself is, inner or outer. But the activity that you're thinking and the activity you're thinking about has to be at the outside. Par koim Mashiach achi machshavosam ma'asav al mizvechitz. Halacha kerabelaza, the halacha like Rabelaza sha'amar mishum Rabbi Yasi. Omar Rabba said, Hilchasel Mashiach. What do you ask me halacha? What's going to be when Mashiach will come? Might not give it today. What do we need to know halacha? So right now the Gemara thought the question is, why even tell me kachim b'chlav? What do I need to know what's going to happen when Mashiach will come? You know, which way we're doing it.
What's Mashiach? What's Mashiach bringing on?
You're telling us a halacha. The halacha is going to be azay nazay. Who cares?
When the mikdash is built, that's what.
What about it then? Moshe and Aaron tells what to do. Abai said,
I hate to ask this question.
oh, listen, this is the gate to everything. Now, this will explain something. How come there are no Rishonim there's no Rishonim on Kachim? Nothing. Except Menachos, you have the Rosh, you have the Rosh. But it's not on Kachim. You'll have on Tefillin, on Mezuzah, on Tzitzis, you have them in the back of Menachos. How come no Rishonim in Kachim? Let's not learn Kachim at all. I guess it took it as a statement, not as a question, because even if they learned it, there's no svarim on it. You learn especially kabbanas, because that's called ha'oisig b'teidas oil v'chatas the day, which says if you're makriv. So therefore, now we had this a few times. We had this we'll have it in Chulin there, but Evari Bas and the Nechira. When they came into Yisrael and the leftover of the Nechira from the Midbar, were they able to continue eating it or not? And l'chayda Maida Hava Hava. So the Rishonim talk about Maida Hava Hava. And Rashi says Droisha Kabbalas Char, and the Rosh says I can't accept that. We don't have a machlekes about something. If it's Droisha Kabbalas Char, it must be an Nafmin Halacha, and he comes up with a fascinating Nafmin Halacha. Yet here the Gemara clearly says, yeah. We do that. We had in Yuma Daf Hey there. Which Seder do you wear the clothes? In fact, this Taisus here brings a number of places where we say, Taisus asks a very interesting question. Why? So 1 second. So the Gemara says, okay, you want to learn against Chab, but what do I have to know the halacha for? What do I have the halacha for? Halacha is nitzgeya. In other words, in the Droisha Kabbalas Char, learning is learning. And the halacha, you don't get any more schar, even though the Eibush only has dal damash or halacha. I guess only the halacha that's mamish the gay halacha l'maisa.
That's the answer.
Exactly. So is it just like Drosh Kabbalas Char? Why don't you say Drosh Kabbalas Char and Hilchos as well? Unless, as far as Drosh Kabbalas Char, the Hilchos itself doesn't really matter. Is it Drosh Kabbalas Char for learning? It's learning. Man, not halacha, not halacha. Like that, we said, even Beis Shammai, Svar Beis Shammai, you have to make birchas hatayr in the morning, and even in the Mishnah. My question is halacha. Now, what's the difference Hilchos and halacha? I don't know. One is the lashon on the cable and lashon zacher. There must be some difference there between the two lashonas. I'm not sure. But Taisus asks an interesting thing. Taisus says there's a whole thing there. If the Kohen Gadol was deposed and the Kohen Gan Kohen took over, what happens to Gan Kohen? Does he go back to the first place? If the first, does the first Kohen Gadol take back and make pasket? Taisus asks the question: Why don't we ask over there? Maida Hava Hava who can or Kilchus Mashiach? So Taisus is very negative. If you have a rov who got sick and is not capable, is dysfunctional. Another guy step in his place, and then he gets healthy again. Is he entitled to his job back or fall once you lose it? The question about kiyas, they talk about it in chazakas, chazanas. If it's for a while and then he gets back his voice or something, what happens is he entitled. So he says, anyway, interesting. You're right. Daf Mem Hey, we start talking about why will we learn.